This is the list video you're looking for. Strap in for the very best Star Wars games on PC. For the past few decades, Star Wars titles of all shapes and sizes have been delighting fans of Mr. Skywalker & Co. Even though the franchise has had some questionable entries in its checked calendar, 43 years on the silver screen, the Far, Far Away series video game output has been stronger than a wampa hooked on protein shakes. So, from triple threat lightsaber duels to Souls-like Jedi scraps, here are the 10 best Star Wars games you can play on PC.
May the Force be with you.
What better way to kick off this celebration of the best Star Wars games than by focusing on a fresh-faced Jedi adventure? Though it was only released at the tail end of 2019, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is already one of the finest virtual takes on George Lucas's sci-fi universe. Tipping its lightsaber to Souls-likes, Respawn's punishing action-adventure is harder than a Wookiee in a ferrocrete vest. Despite being surprisingly brutal, Cal's adventure is thoroughly daft. If you're in need of some downtime after impaling all those stormtroopers on the business end of Cal's laser sword, why not treat yourself to a joyride on a giant bird beastie? Colossal alien aviation, not your thing? No? Then why not relax by having a cosy chinwag while hurtling through the cosmos at light speed? And is it just me, or does Cal's pilot chum look like a cross between an Ewok and Danny DeVito?
Oh, we're not good enough for you?
With pitch-perfect saber combat and exotic alien worlds, it's easy to fall hard for this Souls-influenced scrapper.
Okay, shut that thing off and grab some seat.
From Jedi brutality to brick-based fun, LEGO Star Wars The Complete Saga might just be the cutest use of the Star Wars license in the known universe. No, Baby Yoda doesn't count because he's not in games yet. This kid-friendly romp through the first 6 films is so disarming it almost makes you forget what a steaming pile of bantha, produce, that the prequels are. With easy-to-grasp controls and slapstick cutscenes, LEGO Star Wars' loop of bashing bricks, doing fancy force tricks, and hoovering up every last on-screen stud is more addictive than blue milk ice cream. If the idea of going wild with Admiral Akbar in Mos Eisley's cantina doesn't grab you, perhaps you'd prefer to crash Anakin's pod racer long before he got the chance to murder all those younglings. Either way, there's plenty of blocky force fun times to be squeezed out of this jolly compilation. And if you need further convincing of LEGO Star Wars' cuddly pedigree, it's the only game in this video that lets you pit Indiana Jones against Boba Fett. Surely that cross-franchise fight is worthy of the price of admission alone. A Doom-inspired stormtrooper-slaying shooter, Dark Forces is a golden oldie blaster that deserves to take its place among the Star Wars greats. Starring a young Kyle Katarn long before the rebel soldier ever learned to barbecue Imperial forces with Force lightning, this old-school FPS was a technological marvel in its day. No sniggering in the back, or I'll set whatever this thing is on you. Using LucasArts' in-house Jedi engine, which was built specifically for this ambitious title, Dark Forces was one of the first ever shooters to let you look up and down, crouch, or even jump. So the next time you start blasting stormtroopers without a care in the world in Battlefront 2, cast a respectful nod in the direction of this classic slice of sci-fi blasting. Speaking of which, it would be downright rude not to give props to DICE's gorgeous multiplayer shooter. Dive into Star Wars Battlefront 2 3 years on since its release, and you'll quickly realise that there are few other ways to be so gloriously immersed in Baby Yoda's world. DICE has gone to seemingly impossible lengths to make sure that everything here looks, sounds, and feels just like it should. The campaign is a rich nod to lore fans, and the sprawling multiplayer maps and dogfight modes will scratch every midichlorian itch. Whether you want to engage in frenzied dogfights as you weave through the mighty oaks on Kashyyyk, or avenge the Ewok injustice of Episode 6 by wiping out rebel scum in an AT-ST, Battlefront 2 is just made of Star Wars wish fulfillment. Short of physically handing you a ticket to Disney's Galaxy's Edge, DICE's shooter might be the closest most of us get to a true Star Wars experience. Okay, it's getting a little long in the tooth, but Star Wars Jedi Knight 2 Jedi Outcast is a classic action-adventure that can still teach those Sith whippersnappers a thing or two about sabering. Even after almost 2 decades on, no other Star Wars game has realised the power fantasy of brandishing a laser sword quite like Jedi Outcast. Where lesser titles treat the sacred weapon of the Jedi Order like a glorified glowing baton twirler, Kyle Katarn's blade merrily slices through stormtroopers at will. While gunplay is perfectly serviceable, it's Jedi Knight 2's electrifying sword fights that separate it from the Padawan pack. Playing out like deadly dances of death, even the slightest misstep can end a duel in an instant. Okay, so slaying Kyle's arch enemy, who happens to be a bipedal iguana man, may not exactly rank with chucking the Emperor down a reactor shaft. But ragdolling stormtroopers and breaking out space-time defying Jedi parlour tricks makes this one outcast we'll always welcome back into the fold.
Never trust a bartender with bad grammar.
The best thing to come out of the prequel trilogy, other than Samuel L. Jackson's purple lightsaber, Star Wars Republic Commando would still be a brilliant game, even if it didn't have the official license. A sharp tactical shooter, this squad-based blaster centres around a close-knit band of clone troopers. Set shortly after the events of Episode 2, it sees Delta Squad battling through such Star Wars tourist-worthy hotspots as Geonosis and Kashyyyk. It's also a surprisingly tough customer, and in spite of their no-nonsense appearance, a slight breeze can seemingly down these hardened clone troopers. When you're not reviving your clone chums, stabbing droids, or watching the on-screen visor shake like your commando has just downed 17 intergalactic espressos, hard-hitting firefights are the order of the day. If nothing else, Star Wars Republic Commando deserves its place in this video for briefly letting you control a baby clone trooper. Oh, who's a good little space murderer?
We expect great things from you.
With its epic siege battles and grand spaceship brawls, Star Wars was always destined to churn out a great RTS. After a short and sharp intro crawl, Empire at War immediately catapults you into the sort of desperate aerial assault that would make Han Solo's space socks roll up and down. With a little guidance from 3PO and R2, your budding commander is soon waging war against the Empire on land and in the skies above. Well, providing you choose to side with those pesky rebellion scoundrels, that is. If you'd prefer to embrace the naughtier side of the Force, you can help the Empire crush any pitiful bands of freedom fighters who dare get in your way. Spanning a story-centric campaign that takes place between episodes 3 and 4, a classic skirmish mode and galactic conquest matches where you can turn the tide of battle by slaying the enemy's leader, be it Goody Two-Shoes Mon Mothma or Old Lightning Hands himself, Big Papa Palpatine, Empire at War serves up a delicious RTS banquet that any Bothan would gladly die for.
Now let's get out of here.
If there's one thing that made the Phantom Menace bearable for the merest of standard time parts, it was George Lucas' thrilling 11-minute pod race. Edge of your seat exciting, the much derided movie's most breathless set piece remains impressive 2 decades on. The breakneck sequence also inspired one of the better movie tie-ins in Star Wars canon, with LucasArts' breezy Episode 1 racer providing the perfect companion piece to the prequel's most technically ambitious scene. With races that rocket along with a twitchy, supersonic energy, Episode 1 racers' blink and you'll miss it Grand Prix almost make us forgive the prequels. Alright, they don't, but they're a supercharged hoot all the same. From heated duels on the baking flats of Tatooine to blazingly fast contests in the hypothermia-coating valleys of Ando Prime, this scrappy racer more than earns its podium place on this list. Launching the same year as the pulsating pod racer, X-Wing Alliance has quite the hero's journey. At the beginning of this spaceflight sim, rookie starship scoundrel Ace Azamin spends his days shooting floating space debris. 6 chapters later, and he's playing wingman to Lando Calrissian as the coolest customer in the galaxy blows up the second Death Star. Not too shabby for the lowly son of a smuggler. It's over 20 years since this dogfighter blasted onto shelves, and its aerial battles are still as punishing as ever. Constantly zigzagging TIE fighters prove a perennial nuisance to pin down, and the slightest cockpit mishap can send your vessel spinning to its doom. Get used to the, pole-faced controls though, and Imperial annihilating good times await. From defending a floating casino, because apparently degenerate gambling is totally legal in the farthest reaches of space, to playing a pivotal role in the Return of the Jedi's epic Battle of Endor, X-Wing Alliance nails that sense of spectacle that makes Star Wars dogfights so special.
Prepare to enter hyperspace along that vector.
With one of the most perfectly delivered twists in video game history, BioWare's warmly remembered action RPG is often considered the greatest Star Wars title ever made. And why not? With carbonite-cool lightsaber duels, the sassiest droid in the galaxy, and a script that runs rings around the prequels, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic really is king. Directed by Mass Effect maestro Casey Hudson, this lovingly produced role-playing game takes place a whopping 4,000 years before the Emperor ever orders 66th the Jedi into oblivion. Casting players in the role of an initially unremarkable lead who's suffering from amnesia, it's eventually revealed this generic protagonist is actually Darth Revan, former Sith Master to KOTOR's big bad, Darth Malak. And a dark side user so formidable, they make Darth Vader look about as intimidating as a wheezy porg. Expertly realised, Knights of the Old Republic paved the way for classic RPG franchises like Mass Effect and Dragon Age. A true galactic great.
Wherever you go, you will be recognized as the saviors of the galaxy.
And that's your lot, Force fans. Let us know in the comments below what your must-play games are when you want to make your midichlorians all tingly, and hit that like button if you're plagued by the same Jar Jar night terrors. And as ever, hit the subscribe button and ring that notification bell so that you know when our next video has exited Lightspeed.